Hello, solopreneurs. I'm so happy to be with you again this week for kind of a fun topic. Today we're talking about doing bad stuff. You know we do it, I know you do, and you know I do. And it's so easy to fall into this comparison trap where we compare ourselves to others, and we always, when we do that, we see our worst and their best. So we never win in that comparison. I am here today to put all your fears to rest. You are going to do bad stuff. So let's talk about what happens when you do that bad stuff and how should you feel and how should you respond. Welcome to the Solopreneur Life Podcast. I am your host, Kathryn Aragon. We are here all about building and scaling your business. That's what the Solopreneur Life is about. It's about living a life, but also building a business and something you can be proud of. So the idea is to enjoy the freedom and flexibility that comes with running your own business, right? Good stuff. I hope you'll join me here every week as we dive into the ups and downs of this crazy life. But today, as I said, we're going to focus on, so you did a bad something. Take a minute before we dive in to subscribe to the Solopreneur Life Podcast because I don't want you to miss a single episode. So let's get started, shall we? I used to think that being a professional meant you did everything right the first time. It's like you just knew what what the project needed. You sat down, you did it, and boom, there it was, perfect, right? That really hung me up a lot in my early years. And it took me a long time, even as an adult, even as a professional, to realize just how off base that was and just how much I still kind of believed it, even if I didn't think I did. When in my early days, I was trying to write novels, right? And I was a prolific reader. I would read all of these books, and they were just beautiful, wonderful stories, well written, engaging, and I just so badly wanted to do something similar. But every time I sat down to my own writing, it was awful. It was so bad. I remember one time I had been working on a story, and we'll talk more about this on other days. It really wasn't a story. It was a scene or a character. It was just, it was an idea. But I had sat down to work on it and to write it. And my mother pulled the pad of paper over and read it to my brothers and sisters. And it was like, as I was hearing her read it, I thought, this is the boringest thing I have ever heard. Boringest. You can say that. I give you permission. It was awful. And I actually never worked on the story again because I could hear the difference between that story and what I had in my head. So many times we are going to struggle with that, even as professionals, even as experts at what we do. You are never, ever going to create perfect work on the first try. I hate to break it to you, but that is the truth. First drafts are always rough. Last year, I put together a book writing course. If you're interested, let me know. It's still available, and it's really a good course. If you want to do better at long-form writing or writing a book or an ebook, this is the course for you. And I dive a lot into this very concept because as writers in particular, as I told you my story as a girl, we have this hang-up that if that first draft is ugly and bad and it's awkward and not interesting at all, that it must be trash. We should throw it away and start over. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I learned this in my crazy egg days when I was working on conversion rate optimization. Up until that point, I still I knew better, but I had in the back of my head, no, a pro nails it first try. And I had even created these checklists for myself. Overachiever that I am. I had checklists for, all the best practices that I had ever read. And if I were to use every single one of those best practices in a project, it would come out really good first try, right? No, even if you know all the best practices, even if you know what makes a good first draft, the first draft is going to be stinky. It just is. Because that first draft is always us taking our ideas and trying to give it shape, trying to give it form. And it's never quite clear enough until we begin to get it on paper or in a document. I'll say on paper, I mean in a document. You'll just follow along. So that first effort, not just on a writing project, but anything you do, you're taking an idea, this ephemeral, cloudy thing that's just got a few precise points that are clear, but most of it is foggy. And you're trying to turn that into something tangible. That might be a first draft of a book. It might be the first draft of an article. It might be a website. It might even be a business idea. It's still fuzzy until you start to put it down, until you start to build it. And then all of a sudden you see all the areas where it's cloudy. And it's like, oh wait, I don't know the details on this piece. I don't know the details on that piece. So I'm going to have to come and fill them in later. Now, if you don't take the moment that of looking at it objectively in that way, this is just me taking an idea and trying to make it concrete. You're going to look at that first effort and go, this is bad. I did a bad something. Well, the truth of the matter is you did not do a bad anything. You did a good job of taking a fuzzy idea and beginning to make it concrete. But there are so many layers to that. When I teach writing, I talk about layers of editing. And this is, again, something I kind of picked up from conversion rate optimization, because conversion rate optimization, they'll tell you right off the bat, this is not a once and done thing. This is an ongoing practice. This is something you have to make it part of your culture, that your first iteration on any project is going to be off. You might nail it, but more than likely you won't. And so you are going to go in there and you're just going to pick one piece of that project. Let's say it's a landing page. And let's say I'm looking at the headline and I'm going, is this headline really attracting people? Is this headline really getting people to click? So I decide, okay, I'm going to run a test. I'm going to try to improve this headline. That's what we're doing on any project we build. We are optimizing over time. So that first draft, it gets to be bad because that's all it is. It's a first draft. It's the first iteration. And then we're going to go back through it layer by layer by layer. We may start with the headline. We may start with the big idea. We may start with the intro or the conclusion or a really bad chapter if it's a book. And all we're trying to do is go through this thing one layer at a time and improve it until it becomes good. Now, what you don't realize when you're playing that comparison game is that that's precisely what all those other people who you're comparing yourself to, all the ones who kind of beat you in your head, they did that. They did the process. They did a bad something, and then they started optimizing it. Many, many business owners will actually confess to that. They'll talk about that first idea and how rough it was. They'll talk about the different improvements they made over time to get it to where it is now, the blockbuster, the word of mouth company that it is. You can do the same thing, but you have to start with this single shift in your thinking. And that is, so what? You did a bad something. Now let's fix it. The bad something was not a mistake. It wasn't something you should throw away. I always get this vision of like Stephen King, and he talks about how he threw his first page for the book Carrie in the trash, wadded it up, crumpled up that page, threw it in the trash can. And it was his wife who was cleaning up who pulled it out, read it, and said, "You've got something here, let me help you. Because I can give you the inside of the mind of good girl Carrie." Imagine if she hadn't done that. Would Stephen King be Stephen King without Carrie? You might not be you if you don't do a bad something to get things off the ground. We all do it. Everything we do starts out kind of bad, and it's all those iterations. It's all the little improvements that add up over time and give us something great when we finally step back and look at what we've been doing. It's like, wow, I did this? I built this? Not in a day, not in a moment, and certainly not in that first draft. But over time, you will see all those improvements, and you will have a business you love. You'll have a lifestyle that makes you happy. You'll have a business that's earning tons of money, whatever you need, whatever you want, because it's you who gets to define what successful is. It's you who gets to define what complete is or what good is. You see, it may start out bad, but it doesn't mean it is bad. It just means it needs to be optimized. So, what are we talking about here? Everything has to be optimized over time. It's going to need edits. You're going to need feedback. You're going to learn new things. And honestly, if you think about how quickly things change in our world today, we live in a digital world. Almost everything we do is technology based. I'm joking a lot now. It's like a lot of big shifts that I've made in my business. And I say, because technology. And that's the truth. That really is. Why am I airing the podcast as a live show now? Because technology was bogging me down and I couldn't figure out a better way to do this. For me, doing the live show, I love doing it. But it feels like, oh no, is it tying me down? That's an easy way to feel. And there's a degree to which it does. But I picked a time that's good for me. I hope it's good for you too. And what it does is it frees me up to not worry about technology. So that bad something that originally I was doing has evolved into something else. As your tech changes, as your tools and resources, people resources, time resources, money, all of it, as your resources change, what you do is also going to change. It might look better. It might look worse for a little while. My first couple of live shows were a little rough, but they're getting better. Going live wasn't a bad idea. It just needed to be optimized. And right now, I have someone on the other side of my camera who's actually running the show for me. That helps so much because it means I get to focus simply on talking to you instead of this little corner of my mind worrying about the scenes and the show and tech issues. That's an iteration, another iteration of this project for me. You will also have different iterations. Some will work well, some won't. Doesn't matter. As long as you're moving forward, who cares? The idea is to keep moving forward and keep improving over time. So I want you to apply this same concept to everything. I want you to flesh out your bad business ideas. I want you to create a bad course. I want you to write an imperfect speech. It's by getting that bad idea down on paper that you're going to look at it and you're going to see the ways it can be improved. You're going to see maybe the logic flaws that made it bad and then take those out and now you have a brilliant idea. You may be able to see where you can pull people in to help you refine the idea. The idea is to start with something bad and not be afraid of that and not be ashamed of it. Because that bad something doesn't mean you're bad. It's just the first iteration. And you can fix it. Okay. Now I want us to talk about how you can optimize anything. So we've talked about, you always start with something a little bad, right? It takes a lifestyle of optimization in order to turn those bad things into great things. So let's look at what it takes. I've written down 8 things in order to take anything, your idea, your book, your draft, your speech, your show, from maybe it's kind of bad to, hey, this is pretty good. All right? First, number 1, we're going to test ideas in social media. You'll hear from a lot of experts, especially content marketing experts. Build your content where you own the real estate. And I've debated with that because I'm 100% on board with that. But let's be honest, your audience is not surfing the web like they did 15 years ago. They are on social media, and social media feeds them, that's why it's called a feed, with ideas. and news and things they should be looking at. And if they don't see it there, they're not looking for it. They've entered a phase of, I expect things to come to me, which means you need to go to them. And they are on social media. It doesn't matter which channel. You need to go into social media and test your ideas. Make a post. Start talking about things. Put in a poll. Most of them have poll functionality now, where you can survey your followers and they say, hey, do you like this, this, or this? Get some feedback on your idea. Second, run a survey or poll. And then like I said, you can do that on social media, but I recommend something a little bit bigger here. You want to get input before you build anything. So go to your target audience. Usually they're going to be your email list, and send them a Google survey. So easy to make, free, and you can actually get feedback that will help you create whatever it is you're trying to create. Third, start building with what you know. It may be bad, and that's okay. As we just discussed, that first draft is almost always bad. And you are going to have to put in the work to turn that bad something into a good something. So start with what you do know, even if it's hazy in places, even if you've got gaps in what you know, what you want. Get that idea into a concrete form. If it's an article or a book or something like that, maybe it's going to be in a Google Doc. If it's a business idea, build a website. Go ahead and start writing the web copy so you can build that thing and get it off the ground. 4, get feedback from friends and colleagues. I actually created the hub on Solopreneur Life for this very reason. I went through so many years as a solopreneur having ideas but not knowing what to do with them, not knowing if I was pursuing the right direction, not knowing if my idea was good enough, maybe even having questions about what's the best tech to use to do this thing. And I didn't have a community that I could ask for information, for input on. And what I wanted to create in the hub was that community that I wished I had had so many years ago. And it's working. I am so thrilled with this. I see people bring their questions into the group, and others are answering that question and giving them that feedback they need. People will message me directly and say, hey, what's your opinion on this? And I'm able to give a little bit of coaching back. That is so valuable. Having people who are more experienced than you, who can answer your questions, is invaluable. If you're hungry for that, definitely check out the hub. That's on solopreneurlife.com/join hub. But you don't have to be part of a community. You really can just reach out to friends and colleagues. When I wrote my book, I actually went onto social media and said, I need some beta readers. Who would like to read my book for free and give me your edits and feedback? I had a handful of people who read the book and gave me really, really good feedback. That allowed me to put together a much better draft. Now, yes, does the book need to be improved and updated? Of course it does. You will never put out a perfect anything. So just erase that from your mind. Good, very good, and great, that's good enough. That's what we're after. We just want to take it from bad to something that's good. And you can do that with a little bit of feedback. You'll get there quicker with a little bit of feedback. Okay, so 1, test your ideas in social media. 2, do a survey or a poll. 3, start building with what you've got, whatever it happens to be. 4, get feedback. Now we're at number 5. Get beta users or beta readers. Like I just said, I did that with my book, and it made a huge difference. In fact, my husband just recently came back from a trip to a town we used to live in, and ran into someone there who had been one of my beta readers. And she was so excited. It meant a lot to her to get to do that. It blessed me as well. It was this give, this win-win that works for everybody. go ahead and invite beta users. They will give you feedback that you won't get from anybody else. Be generous, give it to them for free, give them some kind of a reward for doing this for you. And like I said, it's a huge win-win. Number 6, publish and drive traffic. So you've tested your idea, you've built something, you've gotten feedback from beta readers, beta users. Now you've gone live. And now you're driving traffic. Now, instead of just a few hand-selected beta users, you've got the wide world as your beta. And they will continue to give you feedback. They will give you ideas. But most of all, they're probably just going to enjoy what you've built for them because you did that work up front before you actually went live. Number 7, ask for feedback from that audience. Don't just assume they're going to give it to you. They will. Most of the ones who are unhappy will give you lots of feedback. But there are a lot of people who like what you're doing. They just won't tell you if you don't ask. So ask. Run a few different variations, A/B tests maybe, but also just write an email and say, hey, I'd love your feedback. Send it to your entire list and invite people to tell you what they think, what they might improve, what they would like to see on your website, in your book, whatever. And then finally, I want you to look for what people respond to, because as I said, many people won't give you that positive feedback you're looking for, but they will respond to things. So look at the blog post they click on most. Look at the social media topics that people engage with most. That's good feedback. You're going to use that to help you optimize. And then, of course, running tests. Okay. Here's what I want you to understand. You can't be a perfectionist and be a successful solopreneur. Perfectionism is going to tie you down. It's going to bind you up. It's going to keep you from putting out into the world your best ideas. And you're going to tell yourself that you did well because it was a bad something. I'm here to tell you it probably wasn't a bad something. It was probably a huge, wonderful idea that was just in its first iteration, its first draft, its first breath of air. Think of your idea, your business, your book, your piece of content as a newborn baby. It needs some nurturing, it needs some care. And no, it's not perfect when it comes out. When you first bring it into the world, it's going to need a little bit of care. It's going to need some optimization, some layers of edits, layers of improvements. And that's okay. That's part of the process. No one creates a masterpiece in one take. My daughter teaches art, and one of the things that she teaches her students are little exercises. So let's say she's going to paint this giant painting that would cover the entire wall behind me. All right. She won't actually do a sketch of the entire thing. She will not put the composition on the canvas or the board until she's done some exercises. Those exercises, she may say, okay, I want to work on this facial expression, this eye, this hand. And she will pull out one little piece of the painting, the final painting, the big giant thing, and she'll work on one tiny portion of it. And she'll do rapid repetitions until she gets that thing. She gets a feel for it. It's like, oh, I know that eye now. And now that eye is going to be good when I paint it on the final painting. That's how we need to do this. We need to understand that we are going to do umpteen edits of anything we do. So why not do some of them in advance? Why not do little exercises to start working out our ideas before we do our masterpiece, before we do the big thing that now we're kind of ashamed to tell people it turned out bad? It doesn't have to start out bad. It can actually start out pretty good because you've done those exercises up front. Developers do a lot of beta testing on their websites to find all the bugs. You can also do this, as I said, we've talked about the beta testing to make sure that that idea is worth pursuing before you build the big bad thing. Test everything. This is really the mindset I want you to take away. You are always going to test. You are always going to optimize. And that's how the game is played. You will never, ever put out a beautiful, perfect first draft of anything. So, test your ideas, do exercises, let your audience tell you what they like, what they don't, what works, what doesn't. Don't wait for something to be perfect before you put it out into the world. Because a lot of that optimization happens after you've shown it to people. And yes, it's going to improve. And yes, you're going to look back at what you did 10 years ago and go, oh my goodness, really? I could have done so much better. Maybe, but maybe not. That was just the iteration, one iteration, and you've been improving over the years. You've been growing over the years. You've been developing your own skills. And those skills applied to the same idea are going to continually optimize that idea, making it better and better and better. So just start, even if it's bad. You can and you will fix it over time. So what are you doing to grow your business? What are you investing in your own growth? The Hub is our Solopreneur Life group coaching community where you get ongoing training, support, and access to me and other solopreneurs who are doing exactly what you're doing, which is building a lifestyle business that is fun and rewarding. Visit solopreneurlife.com/join-hub to join. I would love to have you in there. But here's why it's most important for you. You may be solo, but you should never go it alone. We're here for you. You just need to come and join us. Don't forget to subscribe to the Solopreneur Life Solopreneur Life Podcast wherever you tune in, and visit us at solopreneurlife.com. We're looking for you there. Join us next week for another smart episode of the Solopreneur Life Podcast, and until then, stay awesome.